Interesting how life is full circle. My first speaking engagement, I was in middle school, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and it was the Optimist Club. And here I am 12 years later. I did live in Minneapolis for some time, and I remember 30, 40 years ago, they were building a new skyscraper downtown Minneapolis. And perhaps you remember the situation. It was 20 degrees below zero that day. And these steel workers are up there 20 stories above the ground, walking back and forth in the steel girders 20 stories above the ground, 20 below zero. As they were doing their work, they were being watched by secretaries across the street. They decided to send the steel workers a message. On a piece of paper, magic marker, wrote out their sign, they held it up. The sign said, "In here, it's 75 degrees. Well, the steelworkers decided to send the secretaries a message. Found a piece of cardboard, piece of chalk, wrote out their sign, and held it up. Said, "Out here, it's $80 an hour." But yeah, it's the right kind of attitude. You ever hear of a game called, The way I look at attitude, it's kind of like buying a car. You can buy the best car in the business. I live in Naples, Florida half of the year, and you see every place, Lamborghinis, Rolls Royces, things like that. You can spend $500,000 in a car, but it won't go an inch without fuel of some sort. And people are the same way. You can give them all kinds of education, degrees, certifications, things like that, but they don't go very far without the motivation, the attitude to put that stuff into place. That's why I'm proud to be here today. You believe in being optimistic, making a difference in the world, impacting things out there. I have 4 daughters. My youngest one, when she was about 4, we play a game called Candyland. Have you ever heard of Candyland, the game? One time we played 4 games in a row, and she lost and lost and lost every single game. Whenever she'd lose, she'd go, "Great, Dad, you won, you won, you won." I couldn't figure that out. When kids lose, often get upset. Here she was losing all the games, clapping for me. I said, "Rachel, how do you do that? Lose all the games, clap for me." I said, "Dad, it's simple. I got a good attitude." And thought, great, she's getting the message. And so all of us believe this already in this room, being optimists. Attitude is the fuel that brings about the success, the results we want. You'll find on your table a handout I put together, what I call the Power Pack. I think there are 9 keys to being powerfully optimistic, powerfully positive in the attitude. Let me share some of those with you today and do a little activity with you. The first one is be an actor, not a reactor. Some of you might know the name Dr. William James, the father of American psychology. If you went to Harvard, you see a building called the James Building of Psychology. He was very famous. He made this comment after some 50 years of research. The greatest discovery of the 20th century is you can have any quality you want in your personality if you just act as if you have it. For example, want to be more patient? Can't go around saying, "Well, I'm not patient, got a temper, mom had a temper, dad had a temper, runs in the family, just raised that way." So that's a cop-out. If you want to be patient, you force yourself to act patiently, even if your guts are churning inside. Eventually you'll feel patient and be patient. Same is true for optimism, a positive attitude. Want to be more enthusiastic? You can't wait until all the problems of life are all gone. That will never happen. Having no problems, that's known as dead. Well, problems every single day. The reason it works, the body and mind always strive to be consistent. It's impossible to sing a happy song like "Good Morning Sunshine," zippity-doo-dah, and be depressed at that moment. Can't be done. It's impossible to walk with a spring in your step and be depressed, to act as if. Put that into a real context. One of my friends lived in New York City. He would go downtown every morning to visit a friend who would walk to the street corner to the newspaper stand. Have you been to New York? You've seen those newspaper stands, kiosks. His friend would buy the paper, go back home and read it. This one morning as they were walking towards the salesman, could see a man selling papers was negative, grouchy, yelling at people, not enthusiastic. But his friend nicely said, "Good morning, Charlie. How are you doing? Good to see you." Salesman said, pff. Not even words, just a spitting sound. His friend said, "Oh, I see." He gave him the money for the paper. He got the change back. He said, "Thanks a lot, Charlie. Always get good service. Appreciate that." Again, the salesman said, pff. They finished the transaction. They were walking away. My friend turned to the other gentleman and said, I don't understand what happened back there. Can I ask you some questions?" He said, "Sure." So does that salesman always act so negatively? He said, "Yeah, every day." He said, "Do you always treat him that nicely?" He said, "Yes, of course." Yeah. Which brought the third most crucial question, which was what? Why? Why do you treat him that nicely when that's the way he treats you all the time? This marvelous answer comes back. He said, "I don't want him to decide how I'm going to behave. I'm an actor, not a reactor." I think there's tremendous wisdom in that comment. Anybody can become negative just because somebody else is a jerk. But the real, mature, professional optimist is the person who brings people up to his or her level of enthusiasm. We're actors, not reactors. Well, people challenge me as I work in the corporate parts of America and say, "Well, just a minute, Dr. Zimmerman. Easy to say, go out there and act enthusiastically. But what if your boss hasn't got a clue? What if the union expects too much? What if your kids are a nag? What if your husband or wife won't listen to you? How do you stay enthusiastic, positive around those types?" Well, that's the second point. And that is, do not catch the other person's disease. Don't catch your disease. What do I mean by that? If I were still a professor in my classroom, and my students were saying, "Oh, this is a dumb class. Do we have to come every day? Do we have to take notes? Will that be on the test?" But my favorite was, "If I'm gone the next 3 days, will I miss anything?" Honest to God, they'd ask you that question. I wanted to say, "No, I plan on wasting your time." All those comments reflected a disease, a negative attitude towards learning. If I were to catch their disease, I'd lose all my power to motivate them. Now, I've been self-employed now for many years, have 2 companies, several employees in different states. If my employees got negative, and I caught their negativity as their so-called president, I'd lose all my power to motivate them. If you've got a husband, a wife, a boyfriend, or girlfriend who gets crabby at you, and you catch their crabbiness, get crabby back at them, you've got a fight on your hands if you're not careful, right? Do not catch their disease. And who made this quite known to us through research? This man, Dr. David Roseville, the psychiatrist, wrote a book called The Lonely Crowd. Found that in America, 85% test out as reactors. They don't think, they just react. He said if you will choose to be an actor, that 15%, and it is a choice, most will follow along. I was intrigued by that research. So I used to practice at the university. I'd walk around the hallways in the morning, greeting professors and students. Might say, "Good morning, hope you have a good day, hope your class goes well, take care, see you around." And most professors would say, "Well, good morning, Alan, good to see you also, have a good one, take care." But I can think of 2 professors who in years of me saying, "Good morning, how are you doing?" they never once said something back. Walked right by in the hallway like, yeah. You ever meet people like that? I thought to myself, forget it. How many years do you have to be positive to get some response out of those people? Then I said, "Just a minute, Alan, you're an actor, not a reactor." I don't know what problems those professors have. Maybe they're constipated every morning. Just want to act like them, to be an actor, not a reactor. People say, "Well, I get the point, Dr. Zimmerman, but how do you know which one you are?" It's real simple to figure out. Look at your first reaction to any bit of news you get. Let's say you go to your office and you find a note from the boss that says, "See me immediately." What is your first reaction? The first reaction, "Well, great, the raise is coming early this year." Or is the first reaction, oh, what did I do wrong this time? 85% expect the negative. You got a kid coming back from school, has a note from the teacher that says, suggest a conference as soon as possible. Your first reaction is, what'd he do? I was on CBS Morning News just a while ago, and the commentator asked me that very question. How do you know what you are? Goes your reaction to any bit of news you get. Now, if you're one of those 85% that is programmed more towards the negative, and I would guess fewer in this room than most because you're the Optimist Club. The good news is it all can be changed. It's a learning process. For just a moment, turn to the person next to you. It might be a group of 2 or 3. But turn to the person next to you. Just don't be left out. And just give you a 30-second question. And that is, how do you see yourself? Are you more the actor who decides how to feel, how to behave? And your spirit rubs off on others. You set the tone, the climate at work, at home. Are you more the actor? Or are you more the reactor? Well, a little more moody, up or down, depends on, well, how the budget's coming out or how much work is on your plate or how the wife was this morning or the kids. Are you more actor, reactor? Quick response. Talk to your partner, please. Go ahead. Okay, great. So if you're in that category, okay, good. So if you happen to be in that category of being a little bit too much on the reactor side, the good news is it's all changeable. There's learning these kinds of skills. The third one is this, and that is refrain from mind binders. Mind is a little negative comment we tell ourselves over and over again. As long as we think that or say that, you will never be optimistic or positive or have the power. And our heads are filled, many people, with mind binders. I remember years ago speaking at, I don't know what it's called anymore, I don't live in Minneapolis, but there was a hotel by the Metrodome, Holiday Inn, 494. Is that still there? I was speaking there at an evening banquet, 400 people in the audience. I'm at the head table, eating the meal, waiting to give the presentation. In comes a waiter, picks up the dishes like this, goes to the exit door, and crashed all the dishes on the floor. At that moment, he said something out loud. Can you guess what he said without swearing? He said, I knew I was going to do that. Then thought to myself, why did you pick up the dishes? One of the basic premises in psychology, you perform exactly as you see yourself, as you tell yourself. I've seen this happen dozens of times in my career. We'll have an auditorium full of people, no tables, just chairs. People get a cup of coffee during the break. Bring the coffee in the room, put the coffee on the floor with their chair and say, now watch me spill this. What do you think they do? They spill it. We perform exactly as we tell ourselves. And there are thousands, perhaps, mind binders. Let me give you a couple dozen. People might say, I can't quit smoking. I can't remember names. I have a poor memory. I keep forgetting things. I'll never understand that new computer program. I can't take any more of these changes. I can't lose weight. I can't stick to a diet. I've always been this way. I just can't seem to get going in the morning. I've got too much work to do. That's just the way I was raised. I'll never get ahead. I'm too old to change. I can't seem to save money. I can't give a speech. I'm no good at that. I don't have the energy. And lots of others. Can't hit a golf ball. With the same person you just spoke to, would you take another 60 seconds and talk about which of those mind binders have you heard people say before or even tell yourself on occasion? Which ones have you heard before or even tell yourself? Tell your same partner, please. Let me ask you that question. Which of those mind binders have you heard people say before? Yeah, probably all of them. Which ones have you heard most often? What's one of them?
Can't take any more of these changes.
Can't take any more changes. Yep. I'm just too old to change, which is a cop-out for everything the rest of your life. Right. Other ones you've heard quite a bit.
My wife made me do it.
My wife made me do it. Add one up to the list. Any others you've heard? Yeah, the computer did it, yeah. Or how many will say things to themselves, I'm no good at remembering names, no good at names. And people say to me, Alan, that is not negative thinking, it's just plain reality. Has nothing to do with reality, all negative thinking. For example, your first name is?
Henry.
Henry. Henry might say, it's true, Alan, I'm no good at names. I can say, I disagree with you. I bet you're an expert. In fact, I'll make you a deal, Henry. I'll pay you $100 for every first and last name in this group you learn between right now, end of the session about 1 o'clock, between now and then, every name you list, $100. I bet Henry would get lots of names memorized by 1 o'clock. He'd go in the hallway, he'd get the attendance list, he'd make flashcards, he'd walk the hallway, he'd memorize.
I'd start with Don.
Yeah. Which tells me he always had the ability, just didn't have the what? Motivation. Or one that scared me a lot was 2 years ago, the research came out and said this. Folks who go around saying things like, I don't know, must be getting Alzheimer's, getting dementia, keep forgetting things, memory keep slipping, keep forgetting things. Those who say that dramatically increase their chances later in life of becoming senile. That is not a joke. That is called goal setting. And the more you talk that way, the more you must become that way. I find these tremendously scary. Should I ever find myself talking that way or thinking that way, I'll talk back to myself and say, no, Ellen, just stop it, now stop it. And by talking back to yourself, you control yourself rather than those mind binders taking control. Let's try it out. Our new member, welcome. What was your first name again?
Thomas.
Thomas, great, Thomas. I don't think we've ever met before, have we?
No.
Are you in good shape, Thomas?
Yeah.
Good. Come up here, please. Thanks for volunteering. One gentleman I've worked with over the years in Australia, Dr. John Diamond, physician, written a book on behavioral kinesiology. And he says what you tell yourself, the mind binders, the positive comments, will give you energy to control, to compete, to win, or to lose. Let's try it out. Thomas, why don't you put your arms out to the side, and I'm going to put my hands on top of your wrist and just resist with all your strength. I don't care if you're stronger, I'm stronger. I want to see your level of strength. You can be my microphone holder. Have you face the audience so they can see you? No, I don't need that for the moment. Okay, just resist. Yeah.
You're strong, Alan.
You're pretty good, too. I'm going to ask you, Thomas, to close your eyes in a moment, and then just tell yourself these comments quietly in your head. They won't be true, but say them to yourself anyway, okay? Understand? So tell yourself in your head, I'm no good. Just think that. I can't do it. I'll never get ahead. I'm not very smart. I'm very average. I can't do it. I don't like myself. I don't have confidence. I just get by. I'm a loser. And open your eyes. Did you tell yourself those comments?
I kind of heard him.
Yeah, you heard them, but did you say them to yourself?
I tried to.
Okay, good. And put your arms back up, and same thing, just resist all your strength again. You ready? And resist. And you're trying, aren't you? Yeah. See what happens. It takes about 30 seconds of beating ourselves up, putting ourselves down, to lose your strength and energy. And people say, oh no, he's just getting tired from the first time. I've really pushed hard, he's wearing out. It's not physical, all psychological. Try this, Thomas. Close your eyes and tell yourself these comments in your head. Tell yourself, I like myself. I'm hardworking. I'm intelligent. I'm moving up. I'm moving ahead. I can do it. I believe in myself. I'm an optimist. I'm a winner. I can do it. I'm cool. And open your eyes. Did you think those comments?
Yeah.
And put your arms up and same thing, resist all your strength. You ready? Mm-hmm. Resist. Yeah. Thank you, Thomas. Good. Thank you. You got
Thank you, Alan.
You
Appreciate
got it, thank you. You can lift me off the floor the other time. It's exactly how it works. And go home and try it yourself if you have any doubts. But no tricks, no games. Read the book yourself, Behavioral Kinesiology, Dr. John Diamond. It takes 10, 15, 20 seconds to simply put herself down, beat herself up, and lose your power. We cannot afford to do that. Moving on to the next skill. Number 4 is to say something positive to every person you meet. It's a way of practicing being more of an actor, putting into practice that power. To say something positive. And there are people like that, obviously, right in this room. I walked in this morning, and there's people saying, good morning, who are you? Welcome here, glad to meet you, tell me about yourself. Smiles, greetings, things like that. And people who are the most effective always have something positive to tell others. Doesn't mean they don't have problems, don't have negative feelings. We all do on occasion. But those who got the positive power pack working for them always find something genuinely positive they can say. I think of Lois Wendell. Still breathing heavy from pushing on your arms. You took my breath away. You were strong. Think of Lois Wendell. You probably don't know the name. But some of you remember her boss. There was a TV preacher years ago, Dr. Robert Schuller. Ever hear of the name? She was his key assistant. Found out from the doctor she got cancer, one of the worst types, not expected to live much longer. She called up Dr. Schuller and said, just came back from the doctor, doesn't look good. Don't have much time left to live. Will you come over and talk to me? See, I'll be right over. Sat in his car, thought to himself, what do I say? Here I am on TV every week talking to millions of people about being positive, enthusiastic, motivated, spiritual. And here's your dear friend, good colleague, she's dying. What do you say now that's positive? He went in, he said a few things. A few years later, she reminded him, when you came through the door that day, you said some things that turned my feelings from fear into enthusiasm that I could make it. He said, I don't know what I said, it's been a long time, remind me. She said, basically, I sat down and prayed. The interesting thing here is the choice of words. He starts by saying, Dear God, we're so thankful today. So how do you start a prayer like that? Here's a person you care about who's dying of cancer, and you say, God, we're thankful. It'd be easy to say, hey, God, I worked at a church for a long time, tried to help people out, now I get cancer. Thanks a lot, buddy. And some folks get very angry when things don't go their way. But he said, we're thankful today. Went on to say this, we're thankful we live in a day and age when great advances are being made in the treatment of cancer. We're thankful we live in a country where the finest and best medical help is available. We're thankful for this vast number of friends who love and support Lois. But most of all, we're thankful for this beautiful gift of faith that Lois has. She doesn't know what the future holds, but she knows who holds the future. In essence, that was it. I thought to myself, if you can think of something positive to say to a person at a rough time like that, there shouldn't be much excuse not to say something positive to every person we meet. As we're saying those positive things, not only are we acting with more power and enthusiasm, but also giving them some of that. To say something positive to the people you meet. Which goes on to the next one. Is to see something positive in every situation. I don't believe that life is totally good or bad, black or white. Any situation, even a rotten situation, always has something good in it. If you can see the positive, you maintain the attitude. For example, 40 years ago, something called the Iran hostage crisis. Do you remember that? We had Americans locked up for 444 days. The highest ranking official military was Colonel Chuck Scott. They thought he was CIA, a spy, which he wasn't. But one of the other hostages was a stool pigeon and said, Chuck is the spy, he knows everything, so he fingered Chuck to save his own skin. As a result, they gave him more torture than anybody else. When they released, I spent 2 days with the hostages. I had a privilege. And talked to Chuck, and totally shocked me. Colonel Scott said, he said, Alan, that was the greatest experience of my lifetime. And I said, what? He said, don't misinterpret me. I'm not a masochist. I don't enjoy pain. I don't want to be tortured again. But I realized if I can make it through Iran, I can make it through anything. So I no longer worry whether you like me or dislike me. There are millions of folks to connect with out there in the world. Doesn't matter if it's hot outside, cold, raining, or snowing. He said, how dare I complain about the weather? I'm alive to live it. That's what counts. He said, if worst came to worst, if I went bankrupt, I lost everything I had, I'd go to McDonald's. They're always hiring. I'd get a job and start over. In other words, he saw Iran as a test. He passed the test. He built a strong, positive attitude. Other Americans who went through Iran are still mad as can be at President Carter, the American government, saying things like they didn't do this, didn't do that, and they'll be messed up the rest of their lifetime. Let's get some new counseling and some new attitudes. Can you see something positive in every situation? Some of you are retired, some of you are working. Maybe you've had some colleague in your career who just got you sometimes. Oh, they just got you. They're so obnoxious, just got to you. Can you see the positive in that? The person that just got to you might have motivated you to go out and buy a book called Coping with Difficult People. And you practice on them. Nothing to lose. The books will say, here's step 1, step 2, and the techniques work. But some folks won't read the books, just complain for 5 years. They drive me crazy. But it could be a learning opportunity. Can you see the positive? I saw my wife do this so beautifully when we lived in Minneapolis some years ago. Her dad was at the VA hospital across town, dying of cancer. It wasn't fun. She was there 7 days a week for several weeks on end, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. But one time before he died, only time his entire life, turned to her once before he died and said he loved her, which is important to hear at least once in life and hopefully many times. If you can see the positive, you maintain the attitude. My oldest daughter was a special education teacher here in town and moved to Denver and teaches out there. We lived in North Mankato at the time. If you know in Mankato, there's 2 towns. There's Mankato across the river, North Mankato. Rather creative naming. It used to be a go across the bridge from one town to the other. You'd be stopped by the train for 30 minutes. It'd be a hassle. I picked her up from school one day. She starts her complaining. She's going through a negative period. Going, yeah. I said, Shelley, I'm fed up. Life is not that bad. There's always something good. Look for the good from now on. Tell me that. I no more had said that, and the train stopped us going across the bridge. She looked at me and she said, what's so good about that? And I didn't know. I learned a long time ago, if you're a teacher and you don't know the answer, you can always say, why don't you think about it for a little while? And maybe you can think of the answer. Works pretty well if they're 6 or 7. She sat down in the car for a moment. She was thinking, jumped up and said, I know what's good about this. I said, what? I get to talk to you a little bit longer. I said, you're right, you got it. And I went, phew. Went home and thought about it. Of course, she was right. Had it been a normal afternoon, I would have gone in the house, done some work. She would have gone outside, played with a friend. Be able to see something positive in every situation. And even though I write books on this, I'm on TV quite a bit, doing all kinds of classes and speeches, even though I believe in this totally, there are times, not many, I'll get a little down, a little negative. When I do, make myself do exactly that. Find something positive in my situation, always find something, and recapture the power, the attitude. One of my heroes, I suspect a hero to all of you as well, said this very succinctly. Winston Churchill. If you don't know your history that well, we almost lost that war. He held back the Nazis long enough until we got in there as Americans and finished it off. But he said it this way, the optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. The pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. That, by the way, is how every one of your companies got started. Someone said, "We have a problem in education, transportation, mediation, government, law, whatever." Somebody else said, "Not a problem, chance for a business." You can see the positive, you maintain the attitude. Crucial, powerful skill. Stand up, please. Let's try something. Face somebody different than your last partner. Face somebody else. I'll just stand here so you can see me for a moment. Quick question, just to practice the skill. I want each of you to share a difficulty you've had in life. We've all had thousands of difficulties, whether a health challenge, financial difficulty, whatever. Maybe when you first got married, you and your spouse were dead broke and you shopped garage sales to make ends meet. But the positive was you were building a home together. Or maybe there was a time when you were having to work overtime, nights, weekends to get some project done on time with quality. But the positive might have been you learned to really manage your time well during that process. So what's a difficulty you can share briefly with your partner, and what was or what could be the positive in that? Very short, 30 seconds each. Here's a difficulty. Here's what I found to be the positive in that. Then the other person. Go ahead, please. Let's go on to another skill for putting that power to work for you. This one says to practice positive expectations. In other words, expecting good things to happen. You just talked about seeing something positive in every situation. And if you can see the positive in a situation now, you maintain the power. This is a future orientation. I'm expecting good things to happen. In psychology, it's called the self-fulfilling prophecy. If you come to an Optimist club and expect to hear a boring speaker, you'll find something to complain about. If you expect to hear something good and learn something, probably will. Kind of get what we expect out of life. I'm usually high energy, very curious. My wife calls me Curious George, that little monkey cartoon character. But there are times, not many, I'll get a little down, not quite so energetic. And when I'm not feeling super high energetic, I'll say, "Alan, what's the problem? Why aren't you excited today?" Almost always the same response. "I'm not looking forward to anything, just putting in my time, another day, another dollar." It could be as simple as knowing, "I'm going to meet my friend Manny for lunch next week." I could be excited the whole week about that. To have things to look forward to, practice positive expectations. I mentioned my daughter going through that negative time. Her most negative time was getting out of bed in the morning. I'd say, "Shelley, time to get up." She'd say, "I can't go to school. I don't feel good." I'd say, "You got to go to school. I don't feel good." I'd go in there and I'd pull on her blanket. She'd pull back and forth, back and forth. I hated the hassle. So I thought, I'm going to try this idea of what I'm teaching in class to practice positive expectations. I ran in her bedroom one morning. I clapped my hands and I said, "Something good is going to happen to you today." She jumped up and said, What? And I said, "I don't know. But I know something good is going to happen. I want you to look for it. I want to report at the end of the day." "Yeah," was her response. She came back into the school day. I said, "I told you something good is going to happen. What happened?" She said, "Nothing. Worst day of my life. Wish I was dead." You know how melodramatic kids can be. Well, I have these degrees in psychology and communication. I thought I'll use my empathic listening skills to understand my poor little child. So I said, "Terrible day?" She said, "Yeah, terrible day." I said, "Honey, I'm sorry. Let me see if I can understand. Maybe your friends wouldn't play with you during recess. That could make it a bad day." "Oh," she said, "no, we played hopscotch and jump rope. That was fun." I said, "I'm sorry. I misunderstood." I said, "Maybe your teacher made fun of you in class. That could make it a bad day." "Oh, no, I got 3 answers right. Got to clean the whiteboards. That was fun." I said, "Well, then maybe you weren't allowed to have lunch today. You had to sit in the cafeteria and starve while all the rest of the kids ate." She said, "No, we had spaghetti, lots of sauce. It was good." I didn't know if this was working very well or not. So every morning for 3 weeks, I'd jump in her bedroom, I'd clap my hands, I'd say, "Something good's going to happen to you today." And the day I would quiz her as to what happened. After 3 weeks of that, she came back from school one day, she said, "Hey, Dad, how many good things happened to you today?" And I didn't know. She had 4. Some smiling face sticker on this paper, some bluebird on this paper, some note from a friend. I'm not sure her day was much better than before. Except you got into a contest to see who could find the most positive things, to practice positive expectations. In terms of the table I was with sharing before, one of my early mentors besides Manny Style was Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. Perhaps you know the name. The book, The Power of Positive Thinking. He taught this for years and years. If you don't know the history, he wrote some 75 books in his life. And he was for 75 years the preacher at Marble Collegiate Church, New York City. Tried to teach people what you expect to happen usually happens, so be careful. Practice positive, not negative expectations. Here's how he would teach the point. He'd have the church members come to the church on New Year's Eve, write on a piece of paper, what do you expect to happen next year? Put it on a piece of paper, put it in an envelope, give them the envelope. Come back the next New Year's Eve and see if what they wrote came true. Did this year after year with almost spooky, amazing accuracy. But what they did write did come true, so be careful. Practice positive, not negative expectations. This has happened in their last go-round in the 90s, and he died in his 90s. He got back the envelopes from the year before. First man opened it up and read back what he wrote the previous New Year's Eve. What he wrote was, all I expect next year is more of the same old miserable life. Said he got it. One lady put down, big job promotion, got that also. Another guy believed in astrology. He read the horoscopes every day, believed that's where truth resided. Capricorn predicted that he would be next year losing his job and lose his marriage partner. He read those back and said, yes, both of those things had happened, and he was delighted that horoscopes were right. A strange fellow. Another lady, a Capricorn, didn't believe in astrology, put down 10 goals for the year, read them back and said, yes, got 9 of them, most of which she expected. But there was one envelope they saved the last. One man had died during the previous year. So when they held the meeting, he just couldn't attend. What they found was one sentence. It says, none of the men in my family have ever lived past the age of 60. I expect I may die next year. Died 1 month before his 60th birthday. Which isn't so strange. You've all seen examples of this. 2 people married for years and years. One spouse dies, and the other spouse might begin to say, nothing to live for, no reason to keep on going, no particular career, job, goals, hobbies, whatever, and they die a few weeks or months after their spouse. Have you seen that? Yep. Close death dates on tombstones. Or talk to a doctor or nurse. My wife's a nurse. Heard the story 1,000 times. Someone's on their deathbed. Kidneys don't work. Heart doesn't work. They should be dead. But hang on week after week, month after month, waiting for their granddaughter to get married. Or one more visit from their sister from Duluth. I'm sure you've heard stories like that. You want to be an optimist filled with power? Then TGIF doesn't cut it. Thank God it's Friday. Have to expect good things today, tomorrow, 6 weeks, 6 months. And the more I'm expecting good things to happen, the more solid it becomes inside of me. To practice positive expectations. Which brings me to another one I love. And that is counteract negative situations with a positive but. Optimists are not unrealistic. They know there are good times and bad times. But when the difficulties come, the challenges come, they counteract the negative with a positive but. I was doing an all-day workshop. Well, I do a 2-day thing these days called Journey to the Extraordinary. Very intensive program. One lady came to it 4 or 5 years ago, and I would think she was in her early 80s. I thought, God bless her. She still wants to learn, coming to workshops in her early 80s. And so I taught him this technique. I said, here's how you get rid of or deal with the negativity. I said, take a piece of paper, put across the top problems versus blessings, put a line down the middle. On the left-hand side, write down all your problems. And for every problem you list, put a counteracting blessing. She wrote this on the problem side, I lost my husband recently, but I still have my children. I lost a lot of money when my stocks dropped drastically, but I have my house which is paid for. My hearing has gotten rather poor, but I can still see very well to read. My son moved out of town, but he still calls me twice every week. Do you see the point? You can focus on the problem side, that I lost a husband, lost some money in the stock market, lost some vision, and a son that moved, and be as depressed as you want to be. Or you can focus on the blessing side, that I got kids that are alive, a house that's paid for, a kid that calls, hearing that works, and be delightfully positive and powerful. It's exactly how our minds work. What you choose to focus on, the problem side versus the blessing side, makes all the difference in the world. And so, when the negativity comes, careful of what you're thinking. Which side are you looking at, the positive or the negative? And if you do these skills over and over again, you become a disciplined, positive actor. It's natural to become an actor instead of a reactor. The one who was my best example was my father. I saw him lose his father, my grandfather, who was dying of cancer, withering away skin and bones. My father fed, bathed, diapered the poor man until he died. About 2-3 years later, after losing his father, came back to his house in Lindstrom, Minnesota, and found his wife dead, 52 years of age. My mother had committed suicide. Didn't expect that. My mom was a good housewife, good mother, went to her Bible study, her bowling team, but she killed herself. About a month after he lost his wife, the company he worked for, truck driving company in the Twin Cities, went out of business, and he lost his job. He looked for a long time, couldn't find work. When you're 55 and don't even have a high school degree, where do you go for work? About a year after that, he took care of his one brother who got cancer, and he was bathing and feeding and diapering him until he passed away. I saw some hurt and grieving. That would be natural. But never saw him lose this, I can get through this kind of attitude. About 3-4 months after he lost his wife, he'd be going to churches in the area around here that have singles group for people who are widowed or divorced to meet other singles. One lady he liked a great deal. Married her, also broke like him, but nice lady. They got married in October. They were around the house talking and said, hey, we're in our 50s. We've lost our spouses, we've got no money, what do we do? And they got an idea using these skills we just talked about, what just might work. That they could buy a bunch of Christmas trees wholesale and begin selling them in Lindstrom, in Roseville, in Eau Claire, in Fall Creek, Wisconsin, Waterloo, Iowa. They began selling so many trees, began buying property, now raising thousands and thousands of trees. Did so well in the business that when I began speaking in China, Israel, France, Jordan, the Philippines, they came with me on all those trips. And I look at people who complain and say, look at all the problems I have. And I look at somebody else who had all these problems, but he had the right attitude to get through that kind of thing. Dr. Hans Selye was the leading physician in the world who connected stress and illness and longevity. He said, life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you're conditioned to respond. You have no control over the 10, but the skills we just talked about are the control you need to take care of the other 90. And so I would suggest, as a way of pulling this together, I write a newsletter for about 75,000 people a week. If you want a free subscription, you can throw your business card up here or put your email on a piece of paper. I'll make sure you get that. I think you'll find the material very exciting and interesting. Just a gift to keep learning in these areas. But I would leave with one thought. The way the most effective people learn is they come to a presentation like this and think, what's one thing I can use? I can take back, I can remember. Maybe it's this thing with the arms, try it on the spouse tonight or the kids. And maybe it's finding something positive in every situation. If you leave with one keeper in mind, I'm going to do that, you've just set a mini goal. And those who set mini goals have the greatest success. One guy proved that, how mini goals work. He was 65 years of age, going to retire in a few weeks. He set 3 goals for retirement. He wanted to play more golf, travel more, and spend more time with his grandchildren. Problem was, he had no grandchildren. He did have 4 adult kids, all married, but nobody was producing any kids. So he brought them all together, his kids and their spouses, for Thanksgiving dinner. He says, I'll be retiring quite soon. I've established some goals. I want to share them with you. So I want to play more golf when I'm retired. I want to travel more. I want more time with my grandchildren. So I have no grandchildren. So the day I'm making this announcement, I've established a $1 million trust fund. It'll be given to the first couple who blesses me with a grandchild. He says, let's bow our heads. Let's thank the Lord for dinner. He prayed, opened his eyes, and the room was empty. The moral of the story is simple. Come to the Optimist Club is just step one, getting the information. Key thing is going out in the world and making a difference. Thanks for being so generous. Thank you so much.
You stay up here a minute, Dr.
Yes,
Bowman?
yes.
Thank you very much, and we always like to present a plaque to our speakers with our creed.
Oh, great. Thank you.
12 years ago, when you gave your first speech,
Right.
did you get one of these?
I did not. They didn't have these.
So we have it that.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Let's take a picture together here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.